Welcome to the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. Are you over 40 and tired of struggling with your weight? Do you feel like you're constantly starting over with your nutrition and fitness? I'm Lil, a certified nutrition coach and former registered nurse, and I too have been there. At the age of 44, I decided I was done with being stuck in the vicious diet cycle. I became a nutrition coach and created the Feel Your Best Formula for women who are ready to do things differently. If you're ready to build a better relationship with food, get your energy back, build muscle, lose fat, and keep it off for good, then you're in the right place. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's build your formula for feeling your best. Hey, welcome to the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. I'm Lil, and today's episode is a must listen. I wish I had this type of advice years ago, but I learned the hard way through trial and error and making so many mistakes along the way so that I can be here today to help you determine the best and worst places to get diet and nutrition information. So first off, why do we even need to talk about this? Well, to be honest, it's the wild, wild west out there when it comes to information on health and wellness. And everywhere you turn, someone is giving you diet, health advice, and most of it is just really bad, not based on facts or science. So my goal here today is to help you tune in to the information sources that are going to make it easier for you to hit your goals, and tune out, unsubscribe, and ignore the bad information that's leaving you confused, annoyed, chasing your tail, and feeling like giving up. I think that's the worst part, when we get bad advice, when we try to do things that are just over the top, difficult, confusing, we give up, and I don't want you to ever give up. Before we dive into the specifics of the best and worst places to get your health information from, let's just set some ground rules. Number one, on this podcast, if this is your first episode, let me make it so clear to you that we understand that fad diets don't work, and fad diets come in all shapes and sizes. They can be a wolf in sheep's clothing, where they sound wonderful and they can be recommended by your best friend, your personal trainer, your favorite fashion influencer, or someone in an online forum. But bottom line, they're all bad because they lead you to the same place, and they just lead you right back where you started. At best, maybe you lose a few pounds, you realize it's not for you. At worst, you can end up with mental and physical harm from following a restrictive diet. So rule number one, you've got to accept that fad diets don't work, and spotting them and avoiding the people that promote them is going to be key to actually building lasting results. Number two, the laws of thermodynamics and physics and science apply to you, just like they apply to everyone. No one is immune to these laws. And in the same way that you cannot stop gravity from keeping your feet firmly on the ground, you cannot expect to lose fat unless you are in a calorie deficit. That is the only way that our bodies lose fat. There are no hacks, there are no tricks. And perhaps your metabolism is a little slower. Perhaps it has been harmed from years of dieting or under eating. Perhaps you have a thyroid issue that has not been corrected through, if you have hypothyroid and you're taking supplemental thyroid hormone. If you've not figured that out yet, then it could be a little bit harder for you to lose weight. But at the end of the day, your body has a certain metabolic need for energy. And if you eat less energy than your body needs, you're going to lose fat. So you have to understand there's no such thing as starvation mode, where you gain weight from not eating enough. It's very disrespectful for people to make these claims. If that was true, then we would not have children dying of starvation during famines. The people of the Holocaust would not be skeletal and have died from starvation, malnutrition. It's just not a thing, and it's something that has kind of caught momentum, where you see people say, oh, I started losing weight when I started eating more. And what happened is you probably started eating, someone who's saying that started eating a larger volume of food, meaning they were more full and satisfied, but they were eating better quality foods versus foods that are higher in calories. Like, just think of a McDonald's meal. That's not going to fill you up the same way that the same amount of calories made of salad, chicken, fish, broccoli, brown rice. To get the same amount of calories, you need a massive amount of food. So things like starvation mode and being tricked into thinking that there's something special about you, maybe that you have a hormonal issue or something like that. These are all just tricks that the diet industry is using on you. And you have to remember that the laws of science apply to each and every one of us, and there are no hacks. And if you do have a medical issue that is messing with your metabolism or your hormones, then you need to get that fixed by a medical professional. And no diet is going to fix that for you. Okay, so let's dive in. I'm starting with the worst because I don't know, that's just a little bit more juicy, right? So, number one, this might surprise you, but I am firmly against asking for advice in Facebook groups. I know it sounds like a great idea, even if you're in a group with a bunch of other people following the same program. You think it makes sense to ask them questions, but at the end of the day, it can end up being a hot mess. You get bad advice. You can get advice that worked for one person, but isn't necessarily applicable to you. And you could even start doing something that doesn't make sense for you. And I'm in a couple different health and wellness Facebook groups, and it just kills me when I see people ask questions and then I see the answers. Oftentimes it's about weight loss. That's like the number one thing that you see in these groups. And then, one person's like keto, another person's like, you need hormone replacement therapy. Another person is saying you need to start doing cold plunges. And then hopefully someone in there is saying, hey, you need to figure out your energy balance, prioritize protein, eat more fiber, whatever, and gives a very reasonable solution. But oh my word, I'm in one group that has a very large amount of people, and the amount of bad advice that I see when people are genuinely asking questions like that is just terrible. So please don't ask questions in there. There's a lot of people out there that think they know a lot about things that they really don't know. And really all they know is what worked for them or what they think worked for them. And what worked for them may not work for you. So I think that asking questions in a Facebook group is just a hot mess and not going to give you the same results or peace of mind or confidence. It's probably just going to leave you more confused. So don't waste your time asking questions in a Facebook group. Okay, number 2, social media. Now, I'm going to have two sides of this coin, all right? And here's the bad side of the coin, the worst place to be getting your information. Two sort of things that I see most frequently is, number one, you have this like group of people who are not health and wellness influencers who are giving you health and wellness advice. Like, this could be a fashion influencer that you follow, and all of a sudden she's like, oh, I'm doing this diet program and here's my code, you can get 10% off if you want to do it too. Or saying like, oh, now I'm doing cold plunges, or I'm using this infrared sauna, or I'm doing this, that, or the other thing. Quite often it is associated with some sort of monetary benefit for them, where they're trying to sell you on something by telling you that they are using it and it has changed their life. But at the end of the day, you're just being influenced, and it doesn't necessarily mean that what they're doing is going to benefit you in any way. And so it's sort of an innocuous way that you're getting bad information. You trust this person. You're like, oh, I love it when they post their Amazon dupes or deals and like all these things, and you trust them in that area. And then automatically you're like, oh, well, they must be giving me good diet advice. And I really appreciated there was an influencer that I followed, and she lost a ton of weight. And of course, people were asking her, and she just said, I don't want to tell you what I did. She shared, she did it in a very healthy way. And she's like, but that's she's like, I'll tell you what I did, but she's like, I did it with help. And that's not what I'm here for. She was more about home decor and style and aesthetics and all of that stuff. And she was very honest, and I think as a society, we have this tendency to see just because someone's been successful at something that we want, that we think we need to do what they did. And the truth is, it's all very nuanced and individualized. So when you see a fashion influencer trying to sell you a cleanse or a detox or some colostrum or some powdered greens or something, just remember they're making money off of that. They don't know what they're talking about, and they're just a salesperson, basically. Then we have group B on social media. And these are people who may or may not be legitimate health and wellness experts, fitness or nutrition experts. And they may or may not be giving you good advice. And a lot of them are giving you bad advice. Some of them are just literally making stuff up. So how do we know if this person is giving us good advice? Because they could be a registered dietitian. They could have all kinds of, degrees or whatever. But generally speaking, let me give you some red flags that kind of tell you that someone is a bad source of advice on social media. So, number one, trying to tell you that their program or their approach is a one size fits all. And I mean, we've seen this over the years where, giving everyone a 1,200 calorie meal plan, no matter whether you're 6 feet tall or 5 feet tall, selling you on the idea that food and fitness can cure a medical condition. Sometimes they might be trying to convince you that you have a medical condition, maybe something wrong with your gut health, like leaky gut, or maybe they're telling you that your hormones are imbalanced, or they're telling you that you have adrenal fatigue, which is like all made up. And then, of course, they're telling you, oh, you have this problem and I have the solution. Additionally, they don't talk about nuance and individualized approaches, really promoting thinness as the ultimate goal, and, just sort of an unattainable lifestyle where there's this idea that you should be on a diet or doing what they do all the time. And they may show you like, oh, hey, I'm on vacation, but I'm still only, following my plan and demonizing foods and celebrating weight loss as saying, oh, this person is healthier now because they've lost weight. If they're telling you you're going to balance your hormones, regulate your nervous system, calling any food a toxin or a poison, or talking about inflammatory foods, this is all made up, emphasizing this idea of clean eating or giving you foods to avoid, or telling you they have a secret hack. Again, there are no secret hacks. You just have to eat less calories than your body requires in order to lose weight. And generally speaking, just creating a lot of fear and anxiety and elitism, privilege around what healthy means. I think those are all red flags. Okay, similarly, number 3, I want to specifically talk about scrolling social media when you're actually looking for solutions. And this can be a terrible way to try and piece together a solution for yourself. Taking a little of this or a little of that, getting distracted. While you're scrolling, it's just not the best way to absorb information that you can actually take in and apply. And generally speaking, getting medical advice or diet advice from places like TikTok or Instagram Reels aren't really that great overall. And I feel like anytime someone says to me, hey, I saw this on TikTok, and then they tell me what they saw, and they'll be like, is that true? Or is this a good idea? Or should I do this? I'm just kind of like, no. Please don't do that. That is a terrible idea. So I think there's just a huge imbalance where there's just a lot of bad information on places like TikTok and Instagram Reels. And you just have to be really careful where you get your information, and just in particular scrolling where you're just kind of taking information that's being put in front of your face without you even actively searching for it is a terrible way to come up with a comprehensive plan especially if you're a beginner. Once you have a good foundation and understanding of how nutrition and fitness works for you, then those little things that pop up aren't quite as distracting and you can easily filter out the good from the bad. But if you're getting started, scrolling on social media is not the best way to actually find a solution. Okay, number 4. I'm just using this as an example, but we all have this person in our lives. Say, for example, your Aunt Sally, she's always struggled with her weight, but somehow she always has advice and opinions on how you can lose weight and be healthy. And, you don't want to take information from people like that any more than you want to take financial advice from someone who's broke. Really look at your sources. And when someone is coming at you, it could even be your partner or your spouse and saying like, you shouldn't be doing things this way. Back in 1995, when I was captain of the football team, this is how we lifted weights or whatever. You just say, listen, I'm glad that, that's your opinion and that worked for you back, 20, 30 years ago. But this is what I'm doing. I have a plan and I'm sticking to it. So thanks for the advice, but no thanks. I know what I'm doing and I just don't really want to get distracted by any outside information. But I have seen this to the point where I have seen people completely change course and start doing something just because someone they know in real life told them to do it. And who are you getting your information from? Does that person have any expertise, any degrees, any education? Or are they just loud and not afraid to voice their opinion? Because I feel like that's the case a lot of the time. So if your Aunt Sally starts giving you advice, that is not the person to be getting it from. Number 5, Netflix documentaries. I feel like I had to talk about this because I see it a lot. Even my clients sometimes come to me and say, oh, I watched XYZ documentary. Is this true? Or should I start, doing more of this or doing less of this and all these things? And I'll say that, the vast majority of those documentaries are absolute garbage. They're just propaganda for whoever put it out. A lot of them are sort of vegan, vegetarian, things like that. And it's just not a great place to be getting information. If you want to be entertained, go ahead. But when you dive into it and look at the studies that they do and how they're actually presenting that information, it is not a great place to be getting information. All right, so those are my 5 worst. Number 1, Facebook groups. Number 2, social media. Number 3, scrolling on social media, even people you don't follow. Number 4, your Aunt Sally. And 5, Netflix documentaries. Okay, time for the best. And ironically, some of the best is also related to the worst. So let's start with social media. There are great people on social media that you can follow that will give you really great advice. And unfortunately, some of the people that give you bad advice can also have the same degrees and letters after their name and educations as, so you can have people with all of this education giving you bad advice and ones giving you good advice. So I think it's a little bit easier if we just talk about green flags and trying to decide if someone is a good source of information. So number 1, they encourage you to eat foods with macro and micronutrients, a balanced diet. They're not telling you to cut out food groups or that any foods are toxic or harmful or anything like that. And they encourage you to include the foods that you enjoy and have treats and things like that, and to educate yourself on how to fit those foods in a healthy way. They hopefully are telling you to prioritize protein and fiber and also strength training and building better cardiovascular health, the importance of sleep, and understanding that there's nuance and sometimes you have to change your schedule. The power is not to be found in sticking to a plan that could ultimately cause you harm. If you're trying to stick to a workout calendar and you miss a workout because you had a terrible night's sleep staying up with one of your sick kids, it's going to be more beneficial for you to get sleep than for you to get up and do your workout. And if someone is telling you that it's better to do your workout than sleep, that would be a red flag. And the person telling you, no, you need to get some sleep, understand the nuance. We can't always stick to the quote plan. And we have to make the best decision that we can in the moment that we're in. That is the green flag. The person who understands nuance, that understands that you're way better off being able to make these decisions on your own rather than feeling like you are stuck following a plan where there is no wiggle room and you're either all in or all out and you're either succeeding or failing. So, oh, another big one, a big green flag is people who talk about, they're going to refer you to the proper medical or mental health professionals if your issue is outside of something that they can help you with. I personally have had my clients reach out for mental health support, if they're struggling, and it's a collaboration and we can all work together so that you can get the best outcome possible. I'm never going to tell someone that diet and fitness is going to cure their depression or anxiety or anything like that. It all works together. Okay, so that's how social media, you can find people who are actually helpful. And then we also have books. There are some books out there that can be really helpful. There's a lot of really bad books out there. There's probably more bad books than good books. I personally recommend Flexible Eating by Alan Aragon or Eat This by Jordan Syatt. I'll put links to those in the show details. But books in long form content, meaning what is long form content versus short form? Long form content are books, blog posts, podcasts, pretty much anything that lasts more than a few minutes, because that's where we've gotten with social media. Everything is blasted out to you in these little snippets, and that is no way to consume information. When you went to college, did you get your degree by getting a bunch of information in 1 minute or 5-minute snippets? No, you read an entire book. And if you really want to make change in your life, you got to stop relying on short form content and be willing to invest the time and energy in long form content. If you're trying to figure it out on your own, then you've got to put, I always say there's a cost to everything. You've got to put the time and energy in, and you want to be making sure you're getting your information from good people. So I'll put the links to those books below. But be very careful when you're purchasing a diet book. We've had the Zone Diet, Atkins, Keto, all these things that, started off with books that got very, very popular. And at the end of the day, they are just a fad diet. Okay, number 3, a great place to get health and wellness information is your doctor's office or in a healthcare setting. From a registered dietitian or a GI specialist or an endocrinologist or your gynecologist. These are all people you might be referred to if you have a medical condition that you feel is affecting your ability to lose weight. And we've done this in my family, and it's covered by insurance, and it was incredibly helpful. So keep in mind, weight loss might be part of your overall plan, but it should not be the only part of your plan. If you do have an underlying medical condition, you have to address those. And I know that for some reason, people out there can think that the information they're getting on Instagram is better than what they're getting in a doctor's office. Listen, there's good doctors, there's bad doctors, there's good nurses, there's bad nurses, there's good registered dietitians, there's bad registered dietitians. And being empowered to know, like, okay, I'm getting bad information, I'm getting bad advice, is the best way to start piecing together a solution that's going to work for you, and knowing who you can trust and who you cannot trust. And I know that can be tricky. I feel very lucky that every healthcare provider that I go to is appropriate and knowledgeable and gives me the direction that I need. So if that's not the case for you, then the next step is to, just change and switch and see what you have available. But I would never say that the information you get on Instagram is necessarily better than what you're getting from a healthcare professional. Okay, number 4, hiring a coach, buying a plan, or purchasing a course on nutrition And again, applying these red flag, green flag criteria to who you work with. But you want to work with someone that understands nuance, that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, that's going to help you build habits that work for your life and is going to help you make it easier to hit your goals. I do think having one-to-one coaching, even if it's just one time or a few times, is invaluable, because I think most of us want to make the best use of our time, and the same way you're probably not going to try and fix your car yourself. You need to understand that having an expert can really streamline and expedite the results that you're looking for, and you can save a ton of time and energy by just getting the best advice in a one-to-one setting. And you could go on YouTube or read a book or follow people on social media or listen to podcasts and try to figure it out on your own. But at the end of the day, you're going to be paying the price of time and energy. And I know, I get it. It feels like we should be able to figure all this stuff out on our own, that it shouldn't be that hard to build a healthy lifestyle, but just look around. We're not doing so great as a society. People are bigger than ever. They're moving less. They're eating more. Young people are being diagnosed with lifestyle-related diseases. And it takes effort to decide you don't want to be on that side of the statistics. So, can you figure things out on your own with the right tools and resources? Yeah, you probably can, but like I say, there's a cost to everything, and I paid the price by investing thousands into becoming a coach, and part of that was unlearning a lot of what I thought I knew. And if you've been spending decades trying to figure things out but never really getting there, then maybe it's time to take a few months or a year where you work with someone who can help you focus on you and your goals and guiding you to build a healthy lifestyle that you feel good about. And also so that you don't ever have to start over again. Even if you do find yourself in a place where you're like, oh, I don't really like where I am right now. I'm working with some sort of family emergency, or I had an illness or an injury. You know what you need to do to get back to feeling like yourself. Remember when I told you in the beginning of this episode that we have to accept that fad diets don't work and look to the laws of thermodynamics and science? That's exactly what I help you do. I show you how to build muscle, how to lose fat, how to keep it off, and how to do it in a way that works for your life. I think of all those years I wasted chasing diets and trying to get skinny and stay skinny. And I think of how I felt for all those years. And then I think of how I feel now and how my clients feel even before they enter a fat loss phase. And that feeling is priceless, to finally have peace with your relationship with food, the scale, and your body. That can never be attained when you're constantly stuck in the diet cycle. And unfortunately, most of the diet advice out there is meant to keep you stuck in this loop. It's meant to take your power away, and it's meant to place your power in the hands of a diet or some sort of guru. And I do the exact opposite. You learn what works for you. You become empowered to make decisions for yourself. And I hope that this episode offers you a solution for some next steps. Maybe you remove yourself from some Facebook groups or unfollow some people on social media, maybe follow some new people. But at the very least, having a new filter for how you receive information so that you understand that just because someone says something, and even if they're shouting it and they're the loudest, it doesn't mean that what they're saying is necessarily true. There's good advice, there's bad advice, and there's downright harmful advice. Unfortunately, it can be very difficult to determine what's what, and I hope that this episode gave you some clarity so that you can start following people and start taking advice that helps lead you towards your goals. All right, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to the best and worst places to get your health and wellness advice, and I will see you back here next Monday. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. If you enjoyed the information and discussion we had here today, then make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. If you're serious about making changes with your nutrition and fitness, then you definitely want to join my weekly newsletter list as well. You can find the link below and more information in the episode details. That's all for today, and we will see you back here next week for a new episode of the Feel Your Best Formula podcast.